Today, we are going to talk about the top 10 haunted items that you've probably never heard of. Number 1, the Anguished Man Painting. The story of this painting comes from a man in Cumbria, England, who claims that he inherited the painting from his grandmother. Now, his grandmother warned him that the painting was evil, but he ignored her warning and hung it on his wall anyway, which is questionable if you've seen the painting. Not long after hanging up the painting, the family began hearing unexplained footsteps and voices. They started seeing shadows and apparitions and had a general feeling of always being watched. His children got so scared that they refused to sleep in their own bedrooms, claiming they felt the presence of someone else in their room with them. Now, the origins of this painting are a bit of a mystery. There are a couple stories about it, though. The first one is that the artist himself mixed his own blood with the paint when creating the painting, therefore leaving a bit of himself in the painting, the perfect recipe for a haunting. The second is that after completing the painting, the artist was driven insane and committed suicide. Now, we don't know if any of these are true, but what we do know is there are certainly some strange happenings around the Anguished Man painting. Number 2, the Myrtles Plantation Mirror. At the Myrtles Plantation, there is a haunted mirror. There are a couple different stories about who is haunting the mirror. Some believe that it's haunted by a little girl who died in the nursery at the plantation. Others believe it's haunted by a slave who was hanged. And there are claims that back up both. Some claim to have seen an apparition of a little girl in the mirror, and not only seen it, but seen the apparition move within the mirror. Others claim that they had seen the hanged slave in the mirror. One woman reported feeling her clothing being tugged on as if a child was trying to get her attention, but no one was there. Others claim to have seen the apparition of the slave, and some have heard his voice. Often people will report hearing strange noises, feeling cold spots, and seeing apparitions. The Myrtles Plantation has a lot of activity, and the mirror only adds to it. The Crying Boy Painting. The Crying Boy Painting is part of a series. The legend goes that if you have the painting or even a print of it in your house, you may be asking for a house fire. In the 1980s, a family had the painting in their house. The house mysteriously burned down. The only thing left intact, the Crying Boy Painting. Another woman who owned the painting also claimed she could hear the sounds of a child crying at night. She also claimed that the eyes of the painting would move to follow her. She said the painting just seemed to emit an unnerving energy. Number 4, the Bassano vase. The Bassano vase has an interesting history. We really don't know where it came from. It's believed that it is a 15th century vase. It was given to a woman as a wedding present. Unfortunately, the bride died the night before her wedding and was never able to walk down the aisle. Afterwards, people who owned the vase started dying off one by one. There are 2 reports. 1, the family gave it to a priest, or 2, it was buried. So whether the family buried it or at some point the priest did, it was in fact buried. And inside, someone left a note stating, "Beware. This vase brings death." In 1988, a man in Italy dug up the vase. 3 months later, he was dead. It was then sold to a local pharmacist. 3 months later, he was dead. An archaeologist heard about the vase and wanted it, going against his family's wishes. 3 months later, the archaeologist died of a mysterious infection. Now, the archaeologist's family didn't want this vase in the first place, and so they tried to get rid of it by throwing it out a window. Unfortunately, they hit a police officer when they threw it out the window. The cop brought it back over to the family, intending to give it back to them and also giving them a fine for littering. The family accepted the fine for littering but refused to take the vase back. This vase was now gaining a reputation. The police officer tried to give it to museums, but none of them wanted it. And according to the legend, the police officer took the vase to a cemetery and buried it on sacred ground. And it still has not been seen to this day. We only have one picture of this vase. So whether the story is true, we may never know until the vase is found again. Number 5, the Hands Resist Him Painting. This painting was put up for auction on eBay in 2000. With a disclaimer that it was haunted. A couple, deciding to disregard the warning, purchased it anyway. Not long after getting it, they started noticing strange things around their house. They would sometimes see the figures in the painting move by themselves. They would also hear tapping sounds coming from it. Their daughter claimed that at night, sometimes the little boy in the painting would crawl out and come into her room, and they all always felt like they were being watched. There's also a story that it was once displayed in a gallery, and the owner of the gallery died only a few days after opening night. Number 6, the Haunted Wedding Dress of Anna Anna Baker.
The story goes that in 1854, while visiting her father Elias at the furnace company that he owned, Anna Baker met and fell in love with one of the steelworkers. She kept the romance a secret as she knew her father wouldn't like it. Over the next 2 years, they sent each other love letters, and at some point, Anna's boyfriend proposed, and she happily accepted. She picked out a beautiful wedding dress, but Elias found out, forbade her from ever seeing her fiancé. He searched her room and took all the love letters and threw them into the fire. Anna's heart was broken. The only thing she had left to remind her of her love was the wedding dress she had picked out. After her father passed away, she saw this as an opportunity to find her former fiancé. Unfortunately, by the time she found him, he was married to another and now had a family. For the rest of her life, Anna lived alone, and in 1914, she passed away heartbroken.
Reports about the dress include feeling cold spots. Some people claim that they've seen the glass case move where the dress is, as if someone were trying to get in. Other people say they've seen the dress move on its own with no one around. Some have heard footsteps around the glass case, and others report hearing phantom rustling fabric as if the dress was moving. Number 7, the Hoke Diamond. In the early 20th century, socialite Evelyn McLean bought the Hoke Diamond. She believed that it would bring her good luck, and she wore it all the time. Unfortunately, her life soon took a dark turn. At the age of 9 years old, her son was hit by a car in front of their house and killed. Later, her daughter died of a drug overdose. Her husband began drinking, took on a mistress, and eventually went insane and had to be institutionalized. Evelyn loved the diamond and refused to give it up. She still believed it would bring her good luck, and she also let her Great Dane wear it on occasion. Because who doesn't do that? And Evelyn herself succumbed to pneumonia in 1947. But, story goes, the diamond caused a power outage at her funeral. Number 8, the red violin. According to virtuoso Joshua Bell, the red violin has a unique sound and mind of its own. He claimed that it would often cause powerful emotions in both listeners and the musician playing. People would often weep or feel a sense of unease around the violin. And in 1988, it was the subject of a film called The Red Violin, in which it was portrayed as a cursed object of beauty and tragedy. Now, we don't know where the red violin, and actually some people question whether or not it even existed, but the story of the red violin continues on. Number 9, the ghost car. The ghost car in Queensland, Australia is a 1970 Holden Kingswood sedan that's said to be haunted by the ghost of its previous owner, a man named Stanley Graham. Graham was a mechanic who was killed in a car accident while driving the car. After his death, the car was sold several times, with each new owner reporting strange experiences while driving it. Some of the claims around the ghost car include seeing the apparition of Graham himself sitting in the passenger seat, maybe just wanting to go for one last ride. Other people report feeling an odd or eerie presence in the car. One owner claimed that the car drove itself and took him to Graham's grave and refused to start back up until the owner paid his respects to Graham. It's now in the possession of a private collector who keeps it locked away. Number 10, the haunted baby carriage at the Lizzie Borden house. Now, we all know about the Lizzie Borden house, and we definitely have heard of the activity there, but did you know there's also a haunted baby carriage within the house itself? Some guests report hearing a baby crying coming from the carriage when no baby is in it. Others report seeing it move on its own. One visitor reportedly felt a strange energy coming from the baby carriage, so they decided to take a picture, and when they did, they saw what looked like an apparition of a baby lying in the empty carriage. Another person reported seeing the carriage move back and forth on its own, and when they approached it, it stopped, and suddenly they heard the sounds of a baby crying. If you enjoy hearing about haunted items, please don't forget to join us Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern when we have a live discussion about Robert the doll. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.